it turns into more heart work and not head work. But this helps your family in their head work because they're going to be grieving, and grief hijacks the brain. That is the best thing you can do for your family. It's a death sentence.
So we've got the lovely Allyse Worland.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here.
All the way from America, all the way across the pond.
Yes, that's right.
We've been looking through a lot of your work and your accolades, and it's impressive to say the least. But I think for the purposes of this interview, I mean, we could ask you questions all the way through, and we probably will, but it always, I think, Carrie, works better if we let our guests introduce yourself and tell us about what you do.
Sure. So I am a first career funeral director and embalmer. And I have been working in funeral service since I was 15 years old. So this is my 16th year in the profession. I'm originally from a very small town here in the United States in Indiana. And I'm from a very small cornfield town. There's nothing back home except for cornfields and livestock. There's nothing really there. And I came to funeral service because I had a bad experience with a loved one that had passed away, and they did not look so great in their casket. And so I wanted to be the person that I needed. And so really the short answer as to why I chose this profession is to be the person I needed and to help others. So that's really how I came to funeral service. And that's why I'm here today.
15 years old is young, isn't it, to join that sort of a job?
How did that come to be?
So you'll probably laugh, but I went door knocking. There were 4 different funeral homes that I tried, and I got the door slammed in my face 3 times. But on the 4th knock, I opened up the door, and my very first mentor opened the door for me. And it was another female funeral director, and she brought me up in the profession, and she taught me so much, and I owe the beginning of my career to her. So it's a testament of women helping other women as well. So that's something that I have loved, and I have passed down through my career, is helping other women, other young people, other people that want to get into the profession. Again, I want to be the person that I needed. So that's how that happened. I just knocked on the door, and she was the first one to open.
It's interesting. So we have recently interviewed some funeral directors here in the UK, and they have been female, which is
massively up our street.
Yeah,
it's pro girls.
And it's not always the case. So I'm not sure whether you're aware or not, but Carrie is an anatomical pathology technician. So she does the autopsies. But actually, quite often you tell me regularly that it's a very male profession in the UK. And is it that the same, would you say, in the States then? Is it more, you've emphasised being a female in this industry. Would you say it is the case that there are more males in the industry there too?
We are about 50-50 now. However, there are a lot of females, of women that do not stay in the profession. As far as, yes, we might be 50-50. Even if you look at the embalming schools, the mortuary schools, I believe that there was just a school that had their very first class that was all female. So it is fascinating to see that it's swinging that way. But I believe we're 50-50 nationally now here in the States. But lots more are going majority female as far as to new classes in the embalming schools.
How did you get into mortuary school? Because it's very different in America than it is in the UK. Like, we haven't got a dedicated mortuary school, if you know what I mean. You sort of learn on the job.
I didn't know that. So I'll tell you how I got into mortuary school. It is like a trade school, so it is a college sorts. But it's the school that I went to just has for mortuary. It is just for people that are going into funeral directing and embalming. So I applied. Just a very brief background on kind of my personal journey, my struggles. I've been on my own since I was 18. So my parents actually kicked me out of the house when I turned 18. It was a crazy time. And I found my way over to Ohio, to Cincinnati. And I thought I was going to go to the mortuary school there. But it was a lot more expensive. And I was a broke 18, 19-year-old. And so I ended up transferring over to another school because it was less expensive. So I applied, and then I paid, I think it was back then, I think it was about $15,000 to go to mortuary school, which was half the cost of what the other school was going to be. So that's how I came to mortuary school. I applied, they let me in, and then I paid money for the expensive piece of paper, as we all do when we go to university.
So when you say mortuary school, we like Harry said, we don't really have something that's a direct equivalent, do we?
Sort of, you have to be in a mortuary setting, and then you're sort of like, they let you train, and then they'll send you off to do the courses. But you can't just join a school. You have to be in a job.
Okay. Yeah, I'm learning so much from you ladies, just how different it is. Yes, you go to the mortuary school. It's about anywhere from like a year and a half to 2 years. So I already had some college, so some prerequisites carried over into the mortuary school. So I served a year. And I was there and then graduated, caps and gowns, the whole deal, pomp and circumstance. And I was working in a funeral home. There wasn't a requirement to work at a funeral home. Some students truly could not find a place. Some funeral homes can be hesitant to hire a student, which I think that's a missed opportunity. But that's a whole nother conversation. I think you should certainly hire students to expose them to create the best next generation of funeral professionals we can. But I did have a job. How I got the job, I was still driving back and forth from my hometown to the same funeral home that hired me when I was 15. I was doing that at first, and then the drive got a little much. I was also, again, broke college kid, so the gas money alone was getting a little taxing. I was always the first one to school in the mornings, always the first one. I was there about 7 o'clock every morning. Class started at 8:30, and my embalming teacher was writing a name and a number of a funeral home that was hiring on the board. And I wrote it down, and then I erased it.
Got to do what you got to do, girl.
So it was a year. It was a year for me, but generally speaking, it's about a year and a half to 2 years, depending on if you have any previous college, whatever that might be. And if you're going to have an associate's degree, or if you're going for a bachelor's. So those are certain things that might contribute to how long you're going to stay. And most of us in mortuary school, just to give you an idea of how the turnover is in this profession, because I mentioned people don't stay in the profession. And what had happened was, when we started, it was 30. We had 30 students in my class. And then we only graduated with 15, so half of them. So, I mean, it can be difficult. I mean, the academic part of it was, you did have to study. I mean, it's not an easy program. So you did have to study. You were expected to maintain a certain grade point average. So you couldn't just flunk out of the school, and also attendance. So you did have to maintain a certain percentage of your attendance in order to keep going to school. They did have high standards. So those sorts of things happen. And once they got a funeral home job and they started to be exposed to the work, they realized that wasn't for them, because death care, the funeral profession, anything around, and you all know just as well as I do, anything around having to do with death, dying, being around in that space can be very taxing emotionally, psychologically. It certainly can. So they would realize that, hey, this is not for me. And then they didn't want to spend the rest of the money, which I don't blame them. You don't want to spend money on something you're not going to do. So they ended up getting out of the program.
It's got to be the kind of thing that, sorry to interrupt you, but you can't possibly know if you're suited to it until you try it. You've got to, you might be loads of people in your position that think, I want to do this because I've had a very poor experience of that whole thing, and get to it and think, actually, oh my God, I can't deal with this at all. It's emotionally too taxing. It's physically, I mean, Carrie, you tell me all the time, it's physically so hard. You can't, you couldn't know that, could you, until you've tried. So that drop-off rate starts to make a lot more sense, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Mm. Is it your funeral directors as same as the UK? The funeral directors here are a very different job to mine, so it's a different sort of training to go and do. So have you got schools that go and do do you call them anatomical pathology technicians or mortuary? What do you call them? APTs?
Yes, yeah, autopsy techs. Yeah, I think it's like autopsy tech, pathologist assistant. Yes, we do have those. That's not something that we do. That's not. I've seen people that have gone to mortuary school realize they don't like funeral work. They don't like the funeral space, and then they transition into a role doing pathology or autopsy tech. So actually, what you do is a pivot. I see a lot of former funeral directors go into that work because they still want to be in the space. They just not necessarily want to be in the funeral space.
And the sort of front facing with families is quite
that's
intense,
really
isn't it?
taxing.
So you have to be very emotionally aware and sort of
Totally amiable all the time. You can't really have a bad day, can you? You just got to be kind and compassionate all of the time.
Very difficult not to have a bad day, and you have to understand that the families are having a worse day than you are, whatever is going on in your life.
You are currently a director of 2 companies and an owner of another one. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Small round of applause. That's absolutely amazing. So I've got it right. You're director at Next Generation. Is that right? Or Next Gen? Tell us a little bit about that.
So people may want to prearrange their funerals. So we help families to plan for when they do pass away. So we help them find their final gift, really, because it really is. When you prearrange your funeral and you prepay it, you're really gifting that to your family, because when you pass away, your family may not know what to do. They may not know where to start. Maybe they won't have the financial means to pay for it at the time, but if you gift that to them.
We're absolute advocates for that, aren't we? We really are, but we don't see it in the UK a lot. So is it quite common practice?
Yes.
No, it isn't, is it? It's getting
more
better,
popular, but
I think it's stiff upper lip British bullshit, really, that doesn't allow, it's still quite staid, it's still quite cloak and dagger, if you like. I don't know, that's the
people
right
don't want to
term.
talk
They don't want to talk about it.
Yeah,
But we personally are very much like, get it in your will, make your final wishes known. But I wouldn't say it was commonplace, but listening to you talk about that, that's really interesting for us. So would you say it's, what's the uptake like? Is there a lot of people making these plans well ahead and also paying for them? A funeral is expensive. We've both just lost people very close to us recently, and I am like amazed at the cost. Just the cost is like, I mean, we had a friend of ours who said recently, I actually can't afford to die. I've worked it out. And it's true. So I think, so this Next Gen that you're the director of is basically putting together your funeral wishes and a financial plan ahead of time.
That's exactly right. Yes. And we encourage families to, it's the final gift you can give to your family, because they may not know what your wishes were, and you can have a say in it. That's the most beautiful part, is you can have a say in what happens to you after your passing, because everyone will die. I encourage pre-planning. I encourage you to prepay it. So at the end of everything, you don't have your family stressing out about, hey, how am I going to do this? How am I going to give my loved one the final farewell that they would have wanted? So this completely helps with all of that. That answers so many questions. And also not just the planning of the services part, but we also ask information about biographical information for their death certificate that maybe the family, when they come in, they may not know. I mean, who knows your loved one's mother's maiden name? And we ask all these questions during the pre-arrangement process, so we don't have to ask them again when the family comes in. So it's really helping less stress. And again, it's just your final gift. It's your final gift you can give them.
And would you say the majority of people who use that service are, in our country, it's very much cremation or burial. Burial these days tends to be for those who are religious more so, unless it's a family tradition. What is the case where you are? Is it more cremation or more burial, or about the same?
So I'm in the south of the country, which is which it's a preference. It is cremation is a preference. Here, I'm in Louisiana, and a lot of people will be entombed. So there's a lot of above ground private estates, crypts, and that's very traditional for this region of the country. So it's very much a tradition as far as regions go. And yes, I was previously in the Midwest, and we were, again, I want to say we're about 60% cremation where I was. And most of the reason why was just a preference. It was just a preference. Cost was certainly a factor with some of the families. So there was, and they may not have a cemetery to go to. So there are many, many reasons. There's not just one reason why families might choose cremation over burial.
Could you just expand on the above ground tombs for us? Because that's something it does happen in this country, but it's really
few and far between.
It's really reserved for the particularly elite, I would say. That's not something I'm familiar with in any other capacity, are you?
Sure, yeah. So there are, all over the United States, there are mausoleums. So they are above ground tombs. They're above ground crypts. They're all over the place here. However, here in Louisiana, where I am, I've just recently, like this is week 1 of me relocating to the city of New Orleans, very famous city. Yes, beautiful. You can't Google New Orleans without seeing some of the famous above ground tombs, the crypts, the private estates that are here.
And the funerals there, are big affairs, aren't they?
Yes, they're beautiful. These all really what these are, it is because New Orleans is below sea level. Traditional burial is not going to work. Then because we are below sea level. It's also very traditional. Families have been having their loved ones entombed in these private estates for many generations, and it's their tradition. So you'll see a lot of what's referred to as a second line. So you'll see these parades for the loved one that has passed away, and we're going all the way to the cemetery. And it is a New Orleans tradition. You can come down here, you might see a second line at any day of the week. And it's a celebration. It's not meant to be mournful. It's meant to celebrate the life. And there's a lot to be said about wanting to celebrate the person. Yes, of course, the passing is sad, but New Orleans is very unique in that way where it's really a celebration of the life that was lived. And yes, acknowledging that the passing that occurred, but more importantly, we're celebrating that they lived and they were a gift to us during their life.
How have you seen burial funerals in general change in the period you've been in the industry? Because they have changed in the last 10 years, definitely. So how have you seen things change? What's more current now?
So let me take you back 16 years ago. So this was 2009. Okay. So that's the year that I got into the profession. I was 15 years old in 2009. And when I first started at the funeral home back in my hometown, now this is in the Midwest. So this is my cornfield town back home in India. Okay. So when I first got to the funeral home, we did 2 nights of visitation. So the viewing. And then on the 3rd day, most of the time we were going to a church. And that would be the 3rd day. So basically the family moved in for the entire week. That's really how it felt. We also, back then, we had 2 chapels. So there were 2 rooms we could have 2 families in on the same evening because it was such common practice. And then I came back home after 10 years. I came back to Indiana after being gone to college and serving in another state. And then what had happened was even surprising to me. It was the smaller of the 2 chapels I mentioned. They had turned into a banquet hall for families to have food after their loved one's service. And we were only really doing all-in-one-day services. So we have 2 or 3 hours before the actual service would take place. And then the service would take place at the funeral home the same day. So that was something I've noticed is people have been condensing the services to all in one day. The reason why it's not one reason. Maybe people are more spread out here. So people have moved, especially during COVID. People moved to other cities, to other states altogether, and they may not have the time off to designate to have 3 or 4 days worth of celebration of life. So it's condensed. I've noticed that's the biggest shift is the condensing and then the coming away from going to a church. So those are the biggest things and people want more of a celebration instead of it being so sad. It used to be very formal and people would dress up, especially back home. People really dressed up and it was an event. Now it's a lot more relaxed. You might have people that are wearing jeans. Sometimes they wear pajama pants. It's not as formal as far as the visitation.
Whatever floats your boat.
So that's the biggest shift I've seen in 16 years.
So you're also a director at Dignity. Now,
Dignity, we have Dignity in the
Yeah.
UK.
It's not the same company, but I know what you're talking about. You're talking about Dignity Memorials. You're talking about Service Corporation International. I did work for them. I did work for them for a short period during my career. But Dignity Solutions, it's totally different than SCI. Dignity Solutions helps other funeral directors. So we help funeral homes find solutions to technology. So we are trying to offer funeral homes updates. Hey, there are things out there. You don't have to have a hard file anymore. You don't have to write every single thing down on pen and paper. You can input things into a computer. So we have solutions as far as technology. We offer that to funeral homes. We offer that to cemeteries. Cemeteries can offer online services as well. So those are things that we offer at Dignity Solutions. So different from funeral directing.
okay. And then your owner at Have License Will Travel. I have to ask why that title. I feel like it's got a story.
It does. So my business partner, so he passed away. It'll be 4 years ago next month. He will have been gone. My business partner actually named that. He loved it's a show, and the title of the show, it's not the title, but it was what one of the characters said on the show. Instead of Have License Will Travel, it was actually Have Gun Will Travel. And so he loved that show so much that he chose to have it as Have License Will Travel. So that's actually not the name I named it, but in honor of my business partner and to honor him and his memory, I kept the company name how he had it. And it is exactly what it sounds like. It is a traveling funeral director, traveling embalmer. And also main thing we offer is continuing education to other funeral directors. So, and we travel all over the place. For that, I expanded the business after he passed. That was a really hard time because he taught me so much, and mentorship is so important anywhere, but especially in funeral service. He was a mentor to me. He was my very best friend. It was very difficult to lose him, but the best way I can honor him is to keep expanding on that business that he built, because we've been business partners. It would have been 6 years next month, but he passed in November of 21, but I learned so much from him. So that's why this was his baby. This is his company. And then we became business partners, and then he passed, and now it's mine.
Really sorry to hear that. Really
so
sorry.
But you now sort of are a mentor for sort of young people. So you've taken what he did for you, and you're doing it for the younger generation of funeral directors who are coming into the industry, which is fantastic. Which is, lets him live on, doesn't it? It's lovely.
Exactly. And I am always open to questions from younger funeral directors, anybody that is starting out. I know that other licensees are the best resource you can have. So I don't want to just have like this echo chamber of people that I work with. I want to learn from everyone. So I want to try to, of course, you've got resources, say you're a student or an intern that works at a funeral home. Of course, you're going to learn from those people. But also I challenge people to look outside of that so you can learn even more perspective. That's why I do what I do, is because I want to offer as much perspective and knowledge as I possibly can. I dealt with a lot of gatekeepers in my time that wanted to hoard knowledge from me, and I don't agree with that. I am a person that's going to open up the gate to knowledge. And that's my challenge to everyone, is to open those gates of knowledge.
Brilliant.
And that's what our podcast is about.
Yeah, absolutely that. It's perfect. So I've listed the 3 main things that you're doing. I don't know how you find time for anything else, but interestingly, you have touched on this already, that you are a trained embalmer. Do you still do much of that work, or are you too busy directing 2 other companies and owning one more?
No, I still do trade embalming, and I'm actually getting ready to meet with another funeral home after this to see how I can best serve them. It's all about serving others, really. And yeah, I still do trade embalming. It's great. I love it. And then I also love interacting with students and other embalmers there that maybe I can learn from. Yes, I was learning how to embalm the same time I was learning how to drive a car, but I know I still don't know everything.
They go hand in hand, don't they?
Yeah. Yes. So if ever I can learn anything from someone else, I want to. I don't ever want to stagnate. That's my biggest fear in my career, is to stagnate. And my motto has been for the past 10 years is, if there's no room to grow, then it's time to go.
I mean, having read that massive list of accolades, I don't think you're in any danger of that at all. It's huge.
I hope not. No, I hope not. And really, my goal is to inspire others to do that, because it is possible. I mean, think of what you all know about me now, and I literally came from nothing, from zero, from the cornfields, and then going on this journey of the profession and building what I have. I want to help other people build that too, because it is possible. I know it looks like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe, look at all of this list. Yes, but I worked very hard, and I want to make sure that other people can know that those things are attainable and the knowledge is out there.
Embracing sort of innovation, how do you do that while still sort of maintaining some of the traditions around death, and how do you try and move things forward into the 21st century?
Very slowly. So funeral directors are famous for clinging to the ways that are traditional, very famous for not wanting to embrace technology or the future. That's an unfortunate truth about the profession, is we're very slow to adapt. We're very slow to change, which we're trying to go in the direction of the future. It's just very, very slow. So we have to accommodate, especially those that are still around, as far as those who own the funeral homes, who are the decision makers, are most of the older generation that are not yet ready to step in the direction of embracing technology. So those that are more like me, that are the younger generation, we see the opportunity to grow, and we also see what the public is asking for. And we have modern conveniences that everyone seems to have and they have access to. And they also want the access to those conveniences, modernizations, technology inside the funeral home when someone passes.
I also read that you're certified celebrant. So you just, when did you decide to do that? Just to throw in another string to your bow?
Yeah, no, really, it was another way I could serve my families. So I, start to finish, I really prided myself on being able to be with the family from start to finish. So I would be the person that went out in the middle of the night and made the transfer of their loved one into my care. If they passed at a nursing home or a hospital or their home, the family would see me. I would be the first person that they would meet at maybe 3 o'clock in the morning. So I would make the transfer. I would be the embalmer. I would embalm their loved one. The family knew I was the embalmer, and that really, I've had a lot of great pride in that. Is the family got to meet with me the next day. I would tell them, your mom looks wonderful, and I would tell them that she's here with us, she's not leaving my care, which is also very important to tell the families, because I want to make sure they know where their loved one is all the time. I would want to know. And then I was also the person that was doing their service. So it was just another touch point for me to be with the family and be present with them. And then I'm also their funeral director. So I'm the one taking them to the cemetery. I'm the one that's making all of the calls and making sure everything is happening behind the scenes. So there was another touch point where I could hold the family's hand through the entire process. That's why I became a celebrant. And I love that. I love services. And to be honest with you, I got really sick and tired of the same sermon, the same over and over again, the same prayers. And I'm like, this isn't personal. This is just a script. And when I put together my celebrant services, I don't have a script. Everything that I need is in the family's head. And that's what I go in with a blank sheet of paper, and then I just start writing. I start asking questions, and then the service is in the family's head. And that's how I write my services.
I mean, that's like a seamless service, isn't it? From start to finish. Yeah. And especially in that time when somebody is grieving and needs that support and needs that, constant person who's telling them from start to finish what's going to happen and holding their hand, like you said. Yeah. It's lovely.
Really nice. I just wanted to go back just briefly to the embalming, because we interviewed an embalmer here in the UK last week or the week before. And I was really interested because it's not something I know anything about at all, really. And I didn't.
And I don't know a lot about it.
And he's an old friend of yours. So, we asked lots of questions. But how common is it to be embalmed in America? Or obviously America's massive, but where you are particularly, is it commonplace? Is it more common than not? Because I don't think it is common here. Like everybody that I've lost, it's never even been offered to me.
It's pretty common still here. Like I said, the cremation rate nationally here is around the 60% mark. That means you're still getting a decent amount of people that are being in. So, and it also is up to the funeral director when you're meeting with the family to tell them the value of seeing their loved one again. Some people may not want to do that because they might be like me and they might have a negative experience. But there is value to seeing your loved one, and there are some amazing embalmers out there, and they do care. They absolutely. I believe it's an art. I believe that embalming is an art. I believe that not everybody can do it. I think that it's important. So it's pretty common still, which I'm grateful for. I'm grateful that it's so common because it is an art. It is an art form.
I think seeing your loved one, I think wrongly people think, oh, we're protecting somebody from not seeing their loved one after they've died. And actually, for some people, you actually need it. And who are we to say that, that's right or wrong to stop you seeing them? Because some people need that closure. And no matter what state they look in, it's something that they need for that finality. So being embalmed obviously makes the best of the situation that they're in.
Absolutely. And I think that families, they imagine things being so much worse than they are. The mind, the imagination plays tricks on you. And once you actually see the person, you get the confirmation. I don't think that when you have a major loss in your life and someone and you both have gone through this recently and losing somebody very close to you, and you know that you never are going to get over that. So at least you can get the confirmation that you need. Not necessarily closure, because you're never going to close the door to that relationship that you had with that person. But at least I can give some confirmation. And also, again, with the imagination, it can play awful games with your mind. And you can imagine them not looking their best. Embalming is an opportunity to show that the person is at peace and to take away that negative thought in your head that, hey, they don't look their best. So there's a lot of pressure being an embalmer because you want the person to look so good and you want the family to find that confirmation. So it's really, again, that's the reason why it's an art. That's why.
Allyse, we've really enjoyed learning about your many roles, not just your one job, your plethora of start to finish services, which is just amazing. Usually on our interviews, on our podcast, we like to ask you some personal questions. Are you happy for us to go ahead with that?
Sure, absolutely.
How do you feel about death now that you work in it? How do you feel about dying? Does it scare you? Or are you so comfortable with it now?
I think that it has evolved for me. That's a wonderful question, because I think that how I viewed death has evolved because I have been so close with it for over half of my life. I've been up close and personal with death and dying. I think that a very pivotal moment for me was with how I view death was when I lost my business partner when he died. That was I'm not close with my family. Again, like just a little bit more about me. I'm not close with my actual family. I don't have a family, and he was the closest thing to family that I had. So when he passed, it was scary. It was very jarring. I know that I don't ever want to see someone pass again. I'm so used to being in the space of after the fact, but it was very interesting and very different to actually watch my business partner die, because I was there for the 4 days that he was in the hospital. I was there. I learned I did not want to die in a hospital. Hopefully, I really hope that I don't. I also really learned what really is important in life versus some of the things that are not less. It kind of was a bigger picture moment in my life. I'm not afraid of it. I do not want to die in a hospital. That was very scary, to be in the room with all the beeping things. And you mentioned how death is kind of sanitized. That's kind of how it was. I don't want that. I am afraid of being cold. I don't want to like feel like a coldness when I pass. I feel like I feel comforted, but you never know. But that's one thing I'm afraid of with death. I'm not afraid to actually die. I am more afraid of dying in a hospital. And I am also hoping that whoever is going to be my designee when I pass away, because I don't have family, like I said, I'm gonna have to designate one of my like dear friends to take care of me. And I worry about if I've left enough instructions for my designee. I worry about me getting back to my home. And I also am terrified of flying. So like if I pass down here in Louisiana, please drive me back to Indiana, because I hate flying so much.
Don't put me in a
I worry
plane.
about that. I worry about things that are going to happen to me after the fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very practical things as well. It kind of makes sense. We get it. Yeah.
Have you got a plan in place though? Have you got a funeral plan and a will and things like that?
Yes. Oh yeah. I've had that for many years. I actually have to update it now that I've moved. But I have a few things jotted down with my move, trying to get back up here. But I have cemetery property already. I've had that in place. I do have funds set aside so that I'm able to be back home. So yes, I do. I've had that in place for, oh my gosh, 10 years now.
You're so organised,
Yeah.
because so many people in the UK don't have anything in place, even if they work in the industry.
We ask
don't.
all our people that we interview this question, and it is remarkable. People who work in the funeral industry as well, that they don't even have a will. They don't have a will. They don't have any of their wishes expressed to anybody. And it's exactly what you said earlier with the company Next Gen. Actually, you're putting all the stress onto your loved one or your friend or family member or whatever, in the event that you haven't told anybody what you want to happen when you die. It's enormously stressful. It has so much red tape, so many legalities around it. But actually, if they don't know, do you want to be buried or cremated, and what song do you want playing, and do you want people to attend a funeral, and do you want them to wear black and cry, or do you want to have a good
Bright
time?
pink,
It's actually quite interesting how many people. I mean, part of our mission on the podcast is to really push this for people, because it's really stressful. So in your own words, could you please tell them again for us to get it sorted?
It is the last gift you could give to your family. It truly is. It is an emotional decision. I will say that much. It is emotional, but this is it, because it turns into more heart work and not head work. But this helps your family in their head work, because they're going to be grieving, and grief hijacks the brain. That is the best thing you can do for your family, as far as, hey, what should I do after I pass? Because they're not going to be thinking in the way that they would normally think. So think of it as, this is my last chance to do something for my loved ones, for my family when they come in. So even if you are in the profession, if you are around death, if you are comfortable around death, just like I am, I still know I'm going to pass away. I work with death every single day, but no, I'm get comfortable with it, because it is going to happen.
I love that phrase you just used, how grief hijacks the brain. Isn't that brilliant?
I think true.
We usually do some little snippets that go on the front end of these interviews before they get uploaded. I think that'll probably be one of them. We'll make sure we we
add that in.
we put your name by it, as you've just coined that phrase.
We've got one last question that we ask everybody. And if you could find out when you were going to die, would you want to know?
Oh yeah, hands down. Yeah, I would want to know.
Absolutely no hesitation there, was there? Nothing.
Yeah, I would want to know. There's no doubt in my mind. I am also a person that I kind of wish I could just flip to the back of the book and see how it all ends, because this has been such a crazy ride here in the profession. It's been just a crazy 16 years of my life. I would love to know how the show ends. I am one of those people that will start a new series, and then once I get at the edge of my seat, I am going to the last episode so I can just see how it ends, because I can't stand it. I can't stand it. The suspense is so bad.
You'd be a really good person to sit down and start a new Netflix series with.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because we're just going to watch it. We're just going to watch it for 5 minutes, and then we're going to go to the very end of the show.
Allyse, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. It's been fascinating. Really, really interesting.
This has been my favorite podcast I think I've ever been on. So thank you for being so candid. I love the conversation style. I love it. And it's been amazing. So thank you. And if anyone else listening, there are some resources out there for you. If you are wanting to plan a funeral, if you want to talk more about grief, death, learn more about what I do, rememberingalife.com is a great resource. The National Funeral Directors Association, that's theirs, and really great resource if you're trying to look into possibly pre-planning, and that's where do you start? So so those of you who decide to pre-plan after today, please utilize their resources out there.
Thank you, dear listeners, for tuning into It's a Death Sentence. Please keep listening to our weekly episodes.
And if you like our show, please like, share and subscribe.
We are dying to talk to you.